Was India the world's largest economy in ancient times? And was it during the era of Hindu rulers?
And did we lose the title after the invasion of Muslim rulers?
You might have heard these kind of arguments from various Hindu right-wing groups. But how much of this is a fact or fiction? It seems the fact lies somewhere in between.
We are going to summarize tons of research by economic historians to help you reach a broad conclusion. Here are the arguments.
Starting from the 1st AD and for a long time after that, India and China were in fact the world's largest and second largest economies. But that was mostly because the population determined the total GDP in the absence of technology-led production, and India and China were the most populated countries. Also, per capita income in ancient times was low everywhere because output was determined by the size of the labor force.
In 1500, China and India were still the largest economies. Some historians say China was slightly ahead of this time. Both are estimated to have a GDP of around $100 billion in purchasing power parity terms, with US dollar taken to its 2015 value. The Delhi Sultanate was in its last period of reign around this time, and there were Hindu kingdoms too. Vasco da Gama had visited India, an early indication of European colonization to come later.
In 1700, India is said to have pulled ahead of China again. This was at the time when India was under the Mughal rule.
But China was making better use of agricultural technology, and by the early 19th century, India was the second largest, but its GDP was just over half of China's.
After that, India never resumed lead position again. Industrial revolution came and the West pulled ahead. The US became the largest economy in 1890 and it remains there till today.
British colonialism also took its toll on India's economy. Even though India's GDP was larger than Britain during the British rule, but its per capita income was way less. In 1870, for example, Britain's per capita income was 6 times higher than India's.
After independence, India chose state socialism model for the economy and China went communist. The socialist and communist period saw both countries slipping down the ranks. India's was the 9th largest economy in 1980, followed by communist China's at 10th.
But then, Deng Xiaoping yanked China out of collectivism in 1978. China raced ahead of India and remains far ahead even now. India started to catch up after 1991 with the opening up of Indian economy.
Now in purchasing power parity terms, India ranks behind China's and US's in terms of GDP. But in per capita income, India ranks much more poorly.
So to conclude, it's meaningless to describe India's ancient, Middle Ages and pre-industrial revolution periods top GDP rankings to either Hindu or Muslim rule. It was a function of India's high population. But it is improbable that India will assume the number one position in the foreseeable future.